Hey all, this is Redditosker. Today we're going to go over the latest Tears of the Kingdom gameplay reveal. You might have noticed I'm kind of late in covering it. I was busy analyzing controversies rather than content like I should have been. Since I'm late, I'm sure the details here have been covered by other channels. So instead of going through everything, this video is going to focus on just the things I find most interesting, and it'll be coated heavily with speculation. So, first thing. There's probably no elemental arrows in Tears of the Kingdom. In Breath of the Wild, when you have a bow out, you'll see on your left directional pad the option to switch what arrow type you're using. If you select it, it'll let you cycle between all the different arrow types you have. But in the gameplay reveal, Link had his bow out and was even aiming his bow, and the UI didn't change to reflect his ability to switch arrows. And that's probably because there are no other arrow types, they're just the basic arrows, and you're expected to craft them into whatever arrow type you want to use. One other thing I noticed is that you can't seem to attach items to your arrows until you draw your bow. There's a prompt that appears at the bottom of the screen that says select material to attach. It appears only when Link draws the bow, and after he shoots the arrow and puts the bow down, it goes away. Which I think probably means that we'll have to individually attach these things to the arrows every time we fire a shot. We're not going to be able to prepare the arrows beforehand, and we're not going to be able to make arrows in bulk as their own item to use. Okay, next thing. Link attaches a mushroom to his shield, and it seems to be a single-use thing. When an enemy attacks the shield, the mushroom explodes and creates a smokescreen. The mushroom then disappears. This could mean that single-use items could be attached to your weapons as well. Because if this is a mushroom item that you can pick up and carry with you, and then attach to your shield at any time, then that makes it different than the other things we've seen attached to Link's weapons. So far what we've seen attached to Link's weapons is other weapons, or logs, or rocks. But we can't carry those things in our inventory, and it's pretty much certain that we'll be able to attach monster parts to the weapons. I made a video a while back talking about the potential of weapon crafting, and that the reasons that the horns look so different than they did in Breath of the Wild was so that we could use them to attach them to our weapon. So this mushroom attached to the shield implies one of several things. It either means that you can use single-use items on your weapons to fuse with. So for example, you might be able to use that white chew jelly on your sword for a single hit of an ice elemental weapon, and then the frost effect would disappear. Or it means that shields have things that can specifically only be attached to them. So it's possible you wouldn't be able to attach that same mushroom to your sword and swing it at an enemy to use the same effect. But if it's the case that anything connects to anything else, it's very likely that you can put that mushroom on a bow and arrow and shoot it off at an enemy in a distance and then, go up to him and sneak attack. It's not 100% clear which one of those things it is, but it's one of those things for sure. Alright, now this I don't think I've seen anybody else talk about. At the beginning of the trailer, the map is not filled in, neither the Overworld Hyrule map or the Sky Island map. When Link goes up to the Sky Islands, here you can see clearly the map is not available. Later on in the trailer, however, the Sky Island map is filled out, and when Link gets knocked back down to the surface, you can see that the Hyrule map is still not filled out, which means that the mapping of these areas is independent of each other. Mapping out an area in Hyrule probably will not map out the Sky Islands above it, and vice versa. You'll have to figure out how to map each one independently. Okay, the next thing is, Link doesn't have a Sheikah slate. Over the course of the many trailers we've seen, he's never used a Sheikah slate ability, he doesn't have bombs, he doesn't use magnesis, and now he has this arm and the abilities that the arm has. In Breath of the Wild, you can clearly see the Sheikah slate visible on Link's person. It's right there. But in Tears of the Kingdom, you can't see the Sheikah slate, because he doesn't have it. So first prediction, he's not going to have access to any Sheikah slate abilities throughout the whole game, I think. No bombs, no stasis, no nothing. And prediction number 2, I am now a true believer in the Zelda is playable theory. I forwarded the possibility in a video a while ago, but I didn't really believe it, and I didn't really care very much. But as we've seen more and more trailers with Link not having access to his bombs, or his stasis, or anything like that, I've changed my mind. I think it's actually quite likely that Zelda is playable, and she has access to the old Sheikah slate abilities. The promotional art that they showed off on Twitter shows Zelda having a new type of Sheikah slate. There's just no reason for her to have that slate if they were not going to do anything with her. If the game starts, and you go through that cutscene in the beginning, and she dies, or she gets stuck underground, or she's away from you somehow, or she turns into a spirit, if something happens to her and she remains inaccessible to you for the entirety of the game, then there's no reason for them to have made a Sheikah slate for her. If they were just going to get rid of her in some way, then they could have just not given her a Sheikah slate and it wouldn't have changed anything. So, the fact that Link doesn't have the Sheikah slate visible on his body, the fact that we haven't seen any Sheikah slate abilities in any trailer, leads me to believe that he doesn't have them, and that Zelda has them, and she'll be playable in some way throughout the game. I was right about the crafting, it works exactly how I detailed in my video. I think maybe I'm right about this too. Now, next thing. The Sky Islands have what appears to be a teleportation point. There's a blue icon there that looks very clickable, very much like a teleportation point in Breath of the Wild. And it even looks a lot like the shrine icon. The pattern on the icon looks a lot like the obelisks that have swirling green energy above them. I think the most obvious answer here is that these swirling green obelisks are just the shrines. I see a lot of other people speculating that the caves are going to be like shrine puzzles, the Sky Islands themselves are like the shrines, or there are no shrines and they're just teleportation points, and I just don't think any of that is the case. I think that these monuments are the shrines. I think they're going to work exactly like the shrines. I think that you're going to go up to them, and they'll transport you to an enclosed space for shrine-like puzzles. With the only difference being there'll be a different song, and the aesthetic inside of the shrines will be more Zonai than they were Sheikah. We'll know soon enough, but I'm putting my money on it's not that complicated. The things are just shrines. Moving on, speaking of the caves, a lot of people have noticed that the caves have check marks on them, implying that the caves will be clearable, which is cool. But I want to focus on one cave specifically. In the trailer, it shows Link going up into this one cave where there's a non-hostile ranger construct sweeping in the distance. Link doesn't talk to him, and here he uses his Ascend ability for the first time. Now, a lot of people have speculated that this area is the starting tutorial location of Tears of the Kingdom, the Great Plateau equivalent. I agree, and I think that in this cave specifically, you were supposed to go and talk to the Ranger Construct, and he would have told you about that chili pepper to your left, and told you to cook it in the cooking pot. It's all too perfect, it's all right next to each other. I don't think there's much else in this particular cave. I think that what you're supposed to do is cook the stuff there, and you're supposed to ascend up into the top. Why? Because the top area has snow. I think this is the introduction into the environmental hazards. You're either supposed to ascend, or you'll probably be able to walk out around that area, up to the snow. This is the snow tutorial. Alright, next, there's an icon in the sky that looks like a little battery. This icon is the same kind of icon that in Breath of the Wild represents some kind of service to the player. A shop, or the stables, or something. But the only thing we've seen that uses this kind of battery icon is the vehicles. But those vehicles don't seem to need to be recharged. They look like they recharge on their own when they're not in use. So for my early speculation, I think that that location is just going to be a place where you can get vehicle parts. So you'll either be able to buy them and carry them around with you and drop them and use them, or these shops are just spread around the areas where the game thinks you're going to need vehicle parts to ascend to somewhere else, or go down to somewhere else, or go across water. Or you'll be able to store vehicle parts with them and get them out in different locations like that you could with horses. I'm not sure of how exactly it's going to work, but I'm fairly certain somehow this battery is related to getting vehicle parts. And the last thing, which I'm sure everybody noticed but I want to complain about, is that the horse riding music is reused from Breath of the Wild, and so is the stables music. It's a little hard to tell from just hearing each one of those themes for a few seconds, but it sounds like there's not any variation to it. It's the exact same themes. Now, I actually like the horse theme and the stable theme quite a bit, but I heard them a lot playing Breath of the Wild. I was hoping for something different this time around. I'm hoping this is not going to be true for most of the game. I'd rather not find out that most of the theme songs are reused across the map, with only new locations getting new songs. And I think that's everything. Well, actually, one other thing, it looks like you don't have all your hearts, obviously. You don't have, your champion abilities. I keep getting asked about the champion abilities. A lot of people seem to want to have them to start with, or that it needs some kind of rationale why you don't have them. I don't think there's going to be any rationale at all. Like, the champions are gone. They're dead. Like, they let them rest. But it's a topic that keeps getting brought up to me. No, you're not getting your champion abilities. Okay, now that's the end of this video. As always, thank you very much for watching.